It was a dark and silent night, one of those nights where the wind whispers unspeakable secrets through the trees. Robert, a taxi driver, was returning home after a long day of work. The clock on his dashboard read 11 p.m., and he knew he was already late for dinner with his wife, Eliza. That night wasn't just any night, it was the anniversary of their daughter Sophia's death. The weight of the loss still hung heavily over him and his wife, and they had a ritual of lighting candles and remembering the little girl every year. Sophia had died tragically, run over by a drunk driver while playing in front of their house. The pain was unbearable, and the void her death left was never filled. That's why Robert wanted to be home with Eliza as quickly as possible. To try to make up for lost time, Robert decided to take a shortcut. He knew the road was old, poorly maintained, and practically deserted, but the shortcut could save precious minutes. However, upon taking the unfamiliar road, he quickly realized he had made a mistake. The darkness was almost tangible, and the only light came from the taxi's headlights. As he drove, a figure emerged on the side of the road, raising a hand in a silent request for a ride. Robert hesitated but decided to stop. As he got closer, he realized it was a little girl, appearing no more than 8 years old. She was alone, clutching a worn teddy bear, and staring into the darkness with a fixed, expressionless gaze. "Hello, little one. What are you doing out here alone at this time of night?" Robert asked, trying to sound as friendly as possible despite his own unease. The girl didn't answer immediately. She seemed lost in her own thoughts, hugging the teddy bear tightly. Finally, in a soft and almost melancholic voice, she murmured, "I'm going to meet my mother. She's waiting for me." Robert felt a chill run down his spine. The girl was alone on a deserted road in the middle of the night, but she spoke with a conviction that was both unsettling and mysterious. Not knowing what else to do, he opened the taxi door for her. "Get in, I'll take you to your mother," Robert said, trying to hide the nervousness in his voice. The girl got into the car and they continued down the dark road. Robert tried to talk to her, but the answers were always vague and evasive. "What's your name, dear?" he asked, hoping at least to know who she was. "My name is Lily," the girl replied, her voice almost inaudible. She seemed even more fragile and pale in the dim light inside the taxi. "And where is your mother waiting for you?" Robert insisted, hoping to find some clue about where to drop her off. "Just keep going. You'll see," said Lily, hugging the teddy bear even tighter. Robert's unease grew with every mile they drove. The road seemed endless and the silence between them was oppressive. The feeling of being lost, not just on the road but in something much larger, something incomprehensible, began to take hold of him. Finally, after what felt like hours, Lily pointed to a spot in the darkness. "Here. You can drop me off here." Robert looked around but saw nothing but trees and darkness. There were no houses, no lights, no sign of civilization. "Are you sure, Lily? I don't see anything around here. My mother is waiting for me." "You can drop me off here," the girl repeated with the same disturbing calm. Against his better judgment, Robert stopped the car and let her out. Lily got out of the taxi, grabbed her suitcase and started walking toward the forest. Still intrigued, Robert took out his phone and snapped a picture of her as she disappeared among the trees. He felt uneasy, as if something very wrong was happening, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. Deciding he needed to get home as quickly as possible, he started the car and returned to the main road, trying to push away the disturbing thoughts that were assaulting him. The next morning, while having breakfast with Eliza, Robert couldn't help but share the strange experience of the previous night. "Last night, I took a shortcut to get home earlier and ended up giving a ride to a little girl who was alone on the road," he began, trying to sound casual, but the tone in his voice betrayed his unease. Eliza frowned, concerned. "A little girl? Alone? Where did you drop her off?" She asked to be dropped off in the middle of the forest, saying her mother was waiting for her. "I didn't see anyone there, but she was so sure. It was strange, to say the least." "That's very strange, Robert. And you just left her there? Aren't you afraid something might have happened to her?" Eliza asked, her voice filled with worry and disbelief. "I took a picture of her when she got out of the car. I wanted to investigate later, but I couldn't stop thinking about our daughter. Maybe that's why I got so disturbed." "Here, let me show you the photo," Robert said, pulling out his phone to show Eliza the image. But when he opened the gallery, he couldn't find the photo he had taken. There were only dark images of the road and the taxi, but none of the girl. He scrolled through all the photos, but it was in vain. "That can't be. I took the picture. I saw her," Robert exclaimed, feeling the cold grip of fear taking hold of him. Eliza, seeing the despair on her husband's face, tried to calm him down. "Maybe you imagined all this. With yesterday's date, the pain of the loss. Maybe you confused things." But Robert knew it wasn't his imagination. He had seen the girl, spoken to her. What was happening? He felt compelled to go back to that place to investigate what was going on. Something inside him told him that this story was far from over. In the days that followed, Robert couldn't get Lily out of his mind. He was obsessed with the idea of discovering the truth about the girl and what really happened that night. Every night, he drove to the spot where he had left her, hoping to find her again but without success. Finally, a week later, retracing the path that led him to that mysterious night, he saw Lily again. She was standing in the same place, wearing the same clothes and holding the same teddy bear. Her hair was loose, gently swaying in the wind. "Lily!" Robert exclaimed as he got out of the taxi. "Are you okay? What are you doing here again?" The girl looked at him with the same serene and distant expression as before. "My mom is waiting for me. Can you take me to her?" Robert felt the same chill as before, but he knew he needed to uncover the truth. "Of course I can take you," he said, trying to hide his apprehension. As they drove, Robert tried to get more information from her, but her answers were as evasive as before. When they arrived at the spot where she had asked to be dropped off the first time, Lily quickly got out of the car and started walking toward the forest. Robert couldn't let her go alone again. He locked the taxi and followed her, determined to discover where she was going and who her mother was. The walk through the forest was difficult, and Robert almost lost sight of Lily several times. Finally, they reached a clearing where there was an old cabin. The structure was in ruins, appearing abandoned for years. Lily ran to the door and entered without hesitation, calling for her mother. Robert approached the window and peeked inside. He saw Lily next to a figure sitting in a rocking chair, back turned to the window. The girl was talking to the figure, but there was no response. "Mom, I'm here. I brought the fruits you like," said Lily, placing a small basket beside the chair. The figure didn't move and Robert felt a chill down his spine. Something was terribly wrong. He decided to enter the cabin to confront the situation. Inside the cabin, the air was heavy and stagnant, as if time had stopped there long ago. Robert approached the chair, and as his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he saw something that froze his blood. The figure sitting in the chair was completely motionless, with its head slumped forward, and it looked like it had been dead for a long time. The skin was pale and withered, and the atmosphere around it was suffocating. "Mom?" Lily called again, her voice echoing through the cabin like a ghostly whisper. Robert took a hesitant step toward the chair and touched the figure's shoulder. As he did, the woman's head turned abruptly, revealing a skeletal and decomposed face. Robert recoiled with a scream of horror. The woman had been dead for years and Lily was talking to a corpse. "She's still here, she's always been here," Lily said with unsettling calmness, as if she didn't realize the state her mother was in. Robert was paralyzed with fear and disgust. The reality was more terrifying than any nightmare he could imagine. How could Lily be there taking care of a dead body? And how did she herself seem so ethereal? It was then that the truth began to reveal itself to him. Lily wasn't a normal girl. She was a shadow of the past, a spirit that hadn't found rest, trapped in this world by pain and loss. "I didn't want to leave her alone," Lily whispered, looking at Robert with sad, empty eyes. "She was all I had." Robert felt unable to move or speak, his mind struggling to comprehend what was happening. He was faced with something that defied logic and reason. Desperate, Robert tried to leave the cabin, but it seemed as if time itself had become a trap, holding him prisoner in that cursed place. He fought against the growing terror inside him, knowing he needed to get out before he lost his sanity. Then he heard the soft voice of Eliza, his wife, calling for him from outside the cabin. The familiarity of her voice was a shock of reality, a thread of sanity amid the madness. He turned and ran toward the door. "Robert, where are you?" Eliza was shouting, her voice sounding more distant with each call, even though he knew she was just outside. "I'm here," he shouted back, desperately trying to get out of the cabin, but the door seemed to grow farther away, and the forest outside appeared to swallow any remaining light. Finally, with one last effort, he managed to burst through the door and stumble outside. The night was as dark as before, but Eliza was standing at the edge of the forest, holding a lantern. She ran to him, wrapped him in her arms, and helped him to his feet. "What happened in there? Are you hurt?" Eliza asked, her eyes full of concern as she examined him. I don't know," Robert murmured, still dazed by what he had witnessed. "We need to leave. Now." Eliza nodded, and together they ran to the taxi. As Robert started the car, he glanced back at the cabin. Lily was standing at the door watching them leave. But there was something different about her now, an air of resignation, as if she knew she could no longer hold them there. As they drove away, Robert felt a deep sadness mixed with the relief of being alive. He knew he would never forget that night and that Lily, the little girl he tried to help, would stay in his memory forever. As Robert and Eliza moved farther from the cabin, the silence between them was heavy. Robert's mind was in turmoil and he couldn't shake the image of Lily, the girl who seemed trapped in a world of pain and loss. He knew something much deeper and tragic was happening there, something he needed to understand. Eliza, noticing her husband's state, gently touched his arm. "Robert, what happened in there? You seem different." Robert sighed, still trying to organize his thoughts. "I don't know, Eliza. Something about that girl Lily? She wasn't an ordinary child. She seemed trapped in that place as if she were waiting for something or someone." Eliza frowned, feeling a chill run down her spine. "Do you think she's stuck here somehow? Like a spirit?" Robert didn't answer immediately. He knew that talking about what he had seen and felt would sound absurd, but he also knew he couldn't ignore what had happened. "I don't know, but I think we need to go back. We can't leave her alone in that cabin. If she really is stuck there, maybe we can help her." Eliza looked at Robert with a mix of concern and determination. "If she needs help, then we need to do what we can." With that decision made, they turned around and headed back to the cabin. When they arrived, they found Lily still at the door as if she knew they would return. The sadness in her eyes was palpable, and Robert felt a deep ache in his chest as he looked at her. "Lily," Robert began, kneeling in front of her. "You don't have to stay here. You can come with us, we can help you." Lily looked at Robert and tears welled up in her eyes. "I can't go, sir. I need to stay here with my mommy." Robert exchanged a meaningful glance with Eliza before replying. "Your mommy isn't here anymore, Lily. She's gone and you don't have to stay here alone." The girl looked down, clutching her teddy bear more tightly. "I don't want to leave her alone." Eliza, feeling a wave of compassion, knelt beside Robert and touched Lily's arm. "You don't have to be alone, Lily. We've lost someone very dear to us too. We know how much it hurts, but you don't have to suffer alone." Lily looked up at Eliza, and for the first time, she seemed to be considering the possibility of leaving the cabin. I don't know where to go." Robert smiled gently. "You can come with us, Lily. We will take care of you." As they headed home, Robert and Eliza tried to unravel the mystery of Lily. Gradually, Lily began to share fragments of her life, which was shrouded in tragedy and loneliness. Lily had lived with her mother in the cabin for as long as she could remember. Her mother, a woman who had escaped an abusive marriage, had found refuge in that isolated cabin far from society. However, Lily's mother also carried her own demons and eventually succumbed to an illness she never revealed to her daughter. When Lily's mother died, the girl was left alone, with only her mother's lifeless body for company. The fear of being discovered or taken away kept Lily in the cabin, caring for her mother's body as best she could, while clinging to the hope that one day her mother would wake up again. The discovery of her mother's death was devastating for Robert and Eliza, but it also ignited a burning desire to care for Lily, as if they were being guided by a greater purpose. "She's been so alone," Eliza whispered to Robert as they watched Lily sleep in the back seat of the car. "We need to do something. We can't let her go back to that place." Robert nodded in agreement. "She can stay with us. We'll give her the home and family she lost." The days that followed were difficult but incredibly rewarding. Lily was used to the isolated life in the cabin and seemed wary of the new environment. Robert and Eliza's home was large, welcoming and filled with light, but for Lily, it was strange and frightening. Eliza made sure Lily's room was decorated in a soft and comforting manner, with light blue tones and new toys. She spent hours by Lily's bedside, reading her bedtime stories, trying to create a sense of security that the girl hadn't known in a long time. Robert, on the other hand, made sure to spend time with Lily, teaching her how to ride a bike and playing in the garden. Gradually, Lily began to open up, leaving behind the shadow of fear that had followed her from the cabin. Lily also started telling stories about her mother, always with an expression of longing but also of acceptance. She spoke of how her mother protected her and of the love she felt for her, and gradually these memories became less painful. Robert and Eliza, who had lost their own daughter in a tragic accident years earlier, found in Lily a new reason to live. The emptiness they felt began to be filled, and the house once again became a place of laughter and joy. One evening, while Robert was alone in the living room, he felt a familiar presence. When he looked at the door, he saw a faint, almost translucent figure. It was Lily's mother, watching with a serene expression. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice like a gentle breeze, "for taking care of her, for giving her the home I couldn't." Robert felt a chill run through his body, but it wasn't from fear. It was a chill of understanding and peace. He knew that Lily's mother was there to say goodbye, knowing that her daughter was in good hands. "She will be our daughter now," Robert replied softly, feeling a tear escape his eyes. "I promise to take care of her, just as you would have." The figure smiled before slowly disappearing into the darkness. Robert felt a sense of relief and, at the same time, a confirmation that he and Eliza were on the right path. Months passed, and Lily became an inseparable part of Robert and Eliza's lives. The girl who was once a shadow of the past was now a child full of life and hope. Lily started attending school, made new friends, and began living the childhood that had been stolen from her. The presence of Robert and Eliza in her life transformed her, and she went from being the girl haunted by loss to becoming a child full of dreams and joys. For Robert and Eliza, Lily became more than just a daughter. She was a healing force for their wounded souls. The emptiness they felt from losing their daughter was, in part, filled by the love they developed for Lily. Though they would never forget their daughter, they found in Lily a new reason to move forward. One night, as they were having dinner together, Eliza looked at Lily and then at Robert and smiled. "I never thought we would be able to find peace again, but here we are. A family." Robert took Eliza's hand, feeling the warmth of the moment. "Yes, we are a family. And we always will be." Lily, who was busy eating, looked at them and smiled, not fully understanding what had been said but feeling the love in the air. She knew she finally had a home, a place where she was loved and where she could be happy. Time passed, and the memory of the cabin in the forest began to fade. For Lily, that was a part of her past she chose to leave behind as she embraced the present and looked to the future. But sometimes, when the night was quiet and the moon was high in the sky, Robert and Eliza would feel a gentle breeze pass through the house, as if it were a reminder that they were not alone, that someone out there was watching over them, grateful for everything they had done. And so, with Lily in their lives, Robert and Eliza found a new reason to live, a new purpose, and finally, the peace they had long sought. The house was complete, filled with love and hope, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring.